Hey guys, it's Chris. From million-dollar cars left behind to the car graveyards that someone's put a lot of effort into. Join me as I reveal 9 crazy abandoned vehicles. Number 9. Carhenge. There are many major monuments in the world, and then there's the one and only Stonehenge. This monument is a wonder in and of itself, but if you're in the United States and you can't make it to the real Stonehenge, then I have an alternative for you, and it's Carhenge. Yes, this is a real thing, and it's made up of abandoned cars. It was built in the 1980s by Jim Reinders as a memorial to his father who had owned land in Alliance, Nebraska. Every car you see in the monument is pretty much from the 1950s and the 1960s, so in a way it was a tribute to classic cars as well. Jim Reinders wanted Carhenge to replicate Stonehenge, so it has a circle of cars, 3 standing trilithons, and includes a car art preserve with sculptures made from car parts. They're all painted gray to honor the original monument. It was dedicated at the June 1987 solstice, so if you get a mystical feeling by looking at it, well, you kinda should. So what do you think? Is this art? Is it junk? Do you like it? Let me know in the comments below. I kinda think it's weirdly cool. Number 8. The case of Gregory Keith Mann Jr. Sometimes it's not the abandoned vehicle itself that's crazy, but rather what happened to the person who used to own it. Gregory Keith Mann Jr. lived in Wichita Falls, Texas, and worked as a salesman of cars there. One day, he was having a good set of sales, and even did delivery of one of the cars he sold. Later that day, he went and signed out a car at the dealership to let them know he was taking it. It was one of their demonstration vehicles, and he needed it for his weekend plans. The car itself was a 1996 Ford Mustang, nothing particularly special about it. The night he signed it out, he hung out with friends, and then left them to go to a meeting that happened to be at 12:15 a.m. The next morning, Keith's parents were driving through town and noticed that the red Mustang he signed out was in a parking lot of a church nearby. The trunk of the car was wide open, and a panel was intentionally lowered down. Just as odd, though the car was locked, when they got inside, it was evident that the car's interior had been heavily cleaned, and Gregory was gone. What happened to Gregory was never discovered, but all signs point to the midnight meeting being the cause of his disappearance. Number 7. A perfectly placed graveyard. So, where do cars go to die? Well, it kind of depends. Many times they'll go to a junkyard, but other times they'll be put in an open area called a car graveyard, where the vehicles will be allowed to rot and decay on their own. And should someone want to take one of them, well, they technically can. And sometimes, like one in Crawfordville, Florida, you can get creative with the placement of the cars in said graveyard, because, kind of why not? Or in this case, it's the placement of their trucks, because just about every single vehicle in this place is a truck, and they're aligned in a way that makes the graveyard look more like art than anything else. Many who go there note that it's a very peaceful place because of the layout and how it accentuates the nature around it. Though it is quite odd how many of the trucks appear to be of the same type and from the same era. That's very rare, but clearly not unheard of. Number 6. Abandoned Lamborghini Mira S. If you're a fan of car shows, then you know that something they love the most is a car that's been undisturbed for years for one reason or another. They call them barn finds because they're usually shacked up in a barn and left untouched. In the case of a Lamborghini Mira S, it wasn't a barn it was found in, but an underground parking lot. The car once belonged to Aristotle Onassis in 1969. If you know the name, then you'll probably recall he was a mogul in the ship industry, as well as a husband to Jacqueline Kennedy. Anyways, he bought this rare car not for himself, but for a rally car driver that he sponsored named Stamatis Kokotis, who at the time was also known as Greek Elvis. Before fully giving the car to him, though, Onassis went and broke it in with a few thousand miles of driving, then sent it to Lamborghini itself so the engine could be outfitted and made better. After giving it to them, they put it in the Hilton Hotel Athens, France, via their underground parking lot, and it remained there for 30 years before being found again. It was put up for auction, and it sold for $483,000. Number 5. The case of Jeremy Burt. Here's another missing persons case involving a car that happened in 2007. Jeremy Burt was living a regular life in Boise, Idaho. He lived with his father, daughter, and his ex-wife Kim. While that may sound odd, their divorce was amicable, and they even felt that they could get back together eventually, so they were fine living under the same roof. One night, Jeremy borrowed Kim's Mercury Cougar to go and see a friend. But that same night, a series of texts were sent from Jeremy, stating that he was going to run away and start a new life. Sure enough, he vanished and didn't come back. The family wasn't buying what the text said, and after some investigating, it was found out that Kim's car, the one that Jeremy took, was in the desert. Yet for some reason, it had not been burned heavily. Just as odd, no sign of Jeremy was in it. Sources close to the investigation feel that it was Jeremy's lawyer, or, well, former lawyer, I should say, Jenny Braun, who took him, or made him disappear, rather. Mainly because they were romantically involved after the divorce, which she handled for Jeremy. And then he broke it off when he found out she was doing illegal activities. He even testified against her later on. Yet despite being convicted of many crimes, she never confessed to taking or harming Jeremy, and he was never found. Number 4. Abandoned car lot. While it's true that there are many places where a car graveyard may be put, one place you honestly wouldn't expect is at a private car dealership. Collier Motors is located in Pikeville, North Carolina, and has primarily ACM cars backstock. The former dealership is now a graveyard, and the cars are getting slowly reclaimed by the overgrown vegetation. Everything is for sale, but make sure you get an appointment first. This place was featured on American Pickers and Lost in Transmission, both on the History Channel. Have you guys ever seen these? Let me know in the comments below. Number 3. Abandoned Aston Martin DB4. When it comes to luxury brands, there's no doubt that Aston Martin is near the top of that list, mainly because of its prominence in culture via things like James Bond. But even the non-Bond cars are worth a pretty penny, such as this Aston Martin DB4, which was once bought by a rich man in Massachusetts in 1970. What's crazy here is that after the man bought the car, which at the time was $400,000 in price, he only drove it for about 2 to 3 years, after which he left the car at one of his homes until it was eventually rediscovered. And even though it wasn't fully driven over the years, it started up immediately upon being found. There were even parts of the car, like a super engine, that hadn't even been tested yet since it was bought in 1970. However, because it was left in one place and not properly maintained, there was much dust and rust on the car, meaning that while it was still valuable, it wasn't even close to its former value, which means that this owner literally wasted a $400,000 car. Number 2. Abandoned, indebted Ferrari. One of the most important rules in life is to follow the rules of the land you're in. And when it comes to the United Arab Emirates, one of the most important rules is to not get into debt. Because if you get high enough into debt, you won't have to worry about the banks or authorities coming after your stuff to get your money back. You'll just find yourself going to jail. Which brings us to a Ferrari Enzo, a car so fast and sleek that it cost $1.1 million to get, which is part of the problem. Because in the UAE, you can get a credit line that goes into the millions. And one British man found himself severely overdrawn and unable to pay back his debts even if he sold everything. So he took his Ferrari Enzo to the airport, got out of the country, and left the car behind, completely abandoned. Number 1. The case of Don Kemp. There are times when you just wonder if you're doing the right thing in your life. For Don Kemp, an advertising executive from New York, this happened after he was in a horrific car accident. He had a moment of clarity. He sold everything he had, and he moved to Wyoming to try and live a new life there. On November 16th of 1982, a Chevy Blazer that belonged to Kemp was found on the side of a prairie road in Wyoming. Don was not there, but a large variety of his clothes were, and they were thrown all over the road for some unknown reason. A set of footprints led the police to the prairie itself, and it was there they found a duffel bag that had even more of Don's stuff. A blizzard came in soon after, though, and the search was called off. Don's body was found months later, a couple miles from his vehicle. It's believed he died because of the blizzard, yet the mystery does not end there. There's no clear indication why Don got out of his car at that spot, why his clothes were everywhere, why his duffel bag was in a barn, and more. Plus, there were sightings of Don from both before and after he was presumed to have died. So what did they all see? And what was the trigger for these strange events? Thanks for watching. What did you think of these stories of crazy abandoned vehicles? Did one of these stories stand out to you? Can you believe that some people abandoned highly valuable cars? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time.